Hi guys, this is Boomer and welcome to my first episode of Let's Codepen. Get it? We're on Codepen. So anyway, what we're going to be looking at today is a CSS animated drop-down menu. What we have in front of you here, you can see it on Codepen. I'll link it in the description below. But essentially what it is it's obviously there's a bit of a animation or a transform translate effect on the actual drop-down menu itself. But also each of the children or child elements have a bit of an animation delay on them. And what we've done with this, excuse me, is rather than doing it in CSS or Sass using the nth child, we've done it in JQuery using looping through the children and adding a bit of animation delay there. And where I got inspiration for this from was over at Dev Tips, old mate Travis here. You should definitely subscribe to him as well as myself and watch all the videos. I think I've seen all of his videos, been a long time subscriber, so yeah, if you know anyone there, pull them along here because I'll be starting my own web development, web design series as well as other design related pursuits. So yeah, without further ado, let's kick it off. So I've created a blank pen here, obviously in settings. I'm using Sass, I've got normalize, auto prefixer, and the JavaScript side I've got used a quick add for jQuery because we're going to be using jQuery for this. We're not going to be using Bootstrap at all. HTML, I'm just using raw HTML, and I don't use Jade purely because a bit of my other design development work I do at work is based in Meteor, and I'll be doing a separate series of Meteor coming out soon, but because that's HTML templating, sorry, then it's just a lot easier to do raw HTML, easy to follow, debug, and especially when you're prototyping. So I'll be using raw HTML, autosave obviously. I use 2-tab indent, but without further ado, let's kick it off. So started off with a few variables. That's just copying the colors that we have over here. So this purple is the primary, this little gray background is the accent, this font color is font light, and the menu color is font dark. Now obviously, as you can see when I've shrunk it down a bit, it's not overly responsive, but that's not what we're really trying to achieve in this quick Codepen. It's just getting an unordered list designer flex box up and running pretty quickly. Right, so first of all we'll start with a nav. And this is just to house the primary navigation, which is, I guess, intended to be. Within that, we'll have a URL. Before we move on, I'll just quickly like to show what's going on under the hood with the animation delay. So I'll bring up the decoder, or the dev tools, as more pleasantly put, and we'll just navigate our way to the drop-down menu, and within that you'll see, I'll just move this down a bit, each of the animation delays is injected by jQuery into inline styles, and usually with inline styles it's a big no-no. People tell you don't do inline styling, but the reality with working with any JavaScript framework, whether it be Meteor or Angular, or even I think React does it a lot, is that I guess critical styling that you need to be dynamic can be injected inline as long as you know or expect it and you can deal with it. Then it's, I mean, inline styles are always going to sort of win the specificity war. But yeah, we've got nothing else that's trying to compete with animation delay, so we're happy with that, and that's just what we've decided to do. So yeah, I thought I'd show you that before we move on. So let's go back to our blank pen, and first of all, we'll so what I'm going to be doing is pretty much just going to walk you through and replicate what we did in that live example there. So we'll start with a primary nav. Now I've just dumped in some classes here. You don't really need classes. Sometimes when you prototype, it's quicker to just use the element tags because you can actually fairly easily navigate the DOM without classes and IDs. nav bar, then within that nav, we'll give that 5 list items, and home. I'm sorry if the typing's quite loud. Where I've got the microphone is right next to the keyboard because I haven't got a microphone stand yet, so just bear with me. It's in the post. Pricing docs. Now I do find Codepen a bit hard to navigate. Like it's not like Atom or Sublime where it's a bit easier to navigate the editor itself. That may be because I don't use Codepen enough to know the shortcuts, but hey. So for each list item, we'll embed a drop-down list. So we'll do ul.dropdown, and we'll give this first one, we'll give it 6 children, eh? So li. Now I'm using, as I showed in the settings, I'm using Emmet, so it's got that great auto-complete functionality, and it saves you a lot of time when you're coding. So just for ease, we'll name these menu 1 to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'll only create one drop down menu for now. So as you can see, it's looking pretty hot at the moment, you know. Look at that great styling, but I don't think we can improve it much, but we'll give it a go. So first of all, we've got a bit of padding on the body, applied 100% height to the HTML and the body. That's just so if we, I guess general good practice, if you want to use percentage heights, it can go throughout the DOM depending on how you declare it for each of the child elements. We'll start off with ul.nav, and we'll make this display flex. Now I think it's good practice to use long names for a lot of the properties you declare in SAS. That's just, personal preference. I think even though it's more typing, it's good practice to get into, because it's when you're prototyping and you're throwing together code really quickly, it's easy to debug and undo. And when you're actually, I guess when you're boiling down code and improving it and trying to make things more global, that's when you're going to rewrite your code anyway. So this just makes it easier to spot imperfections, I suppose. So we'll make this row, even though that's a default, we'll just declare it. Now apply max width just so it doesn't get too big of 70%. And just so, it's a bit annoying at the moment, so we'll do ul.drop down visibility hidden. Now usually when you want to toggle between states, a lot of people do display none and then display block. You can't animate those two states, and I think it's actually better if you use visibility hidden. Because it's technically still in the DOM, but you can't highlight it. I'll show you in a sec. 0. So we will bring that up now in the debugger. You'll see here drop down. So you can still highlight it, but if I try hover and select it within here, I can't. So it's basically when you apply visibility hidden and opacity 0, it's non-selectable, even though it still takes up, I'm pretty sure it still takes up its position flow within the DOM, so we still have to apply a position salute. So this isn't my usual keyboard either, so 100%. So I'll make a lot of typos. Right, 0. What am I missing? So I'm just referencing my other master copy as you do on the go. It's a bit hard to always remember what you're doing when you're recording and trying to do things at the same time. Obviously a bit of a noob at the recording side, so as I improve I will need to reference things less. So color, apply the border, top left. Oh. 6. This is pretty much officially the most draining property to type, because I don't really know if there's a quick and easier way of doing it. 6 pixels. .nav. Color, I think it's text slide. I always forget when I name these variables. Oh no, not in the UL element, padding. So because we've got a when you do prototype code, you've just got to use the direct descendant selector a bit, just so that way we've got here a ul.nav, and then I'm targeting this list item, but obviously there's list items here that I haven't applied class names to, so I've got to apply the direct descendant, so that way I'm only targeting the direct descendant, so it doesn't go any deeper than one node. So we'll do that. We'll just position relative flex. And another thing I don't like so much about Codepen is how it indents randomly, but we'll learn to live with it. Flex grow. Do we want? Yeah, we want it to grow, but we don't want it to shrink. Do a font size of text. Sorry guys, bit of a noob there. Nothing was updated, and I couldn't understand what was happening. It's because I had misdeclared my color variable, so I won't make that mistake in the future. So let us continue. List style none should start to take shape now, and unfortunately I deleted the nemesis properties. Border top right. Let's go left first. Radius 6 pixels. Border top 6 pixels. Image mistakes. Right, there we go. Time to make some money. So let's continue on with the list items. So we've got grow, yes, shrink, no, font size 14. We've made it uppercase. Now to make it look a little bit better, we are going to align the text in the center. You can do this using Flexbox, but we'll just do it the quick and easy way. We'll give it a bit of letter spacing, 1 pix. let's make the line height 60 pixels. So that will again center the text there. I mean, you can do it using Flexbox again, but this is a bit of old school method right here. We'll give it a color, font light, I think it is. Let's double check. Oh hey, it worked. Right, so we've got the core of our unordered list with our list items style. Nothing to do with the drop down yet, but what we will do is we will give it a, sorry, just referencing the master copy just to make sure I haven't left anything out apart from cursor pointer. So even though I don't have any links in here, it's just giving the illusion that there are links. And we'll do some CSS states, even though we're only using one state, and that's hover. Give it a nice little divider here. So, and for those of you that don't use SAS, even if you watch Travis over at Dev Tips, he will tell you to use SAS and nothing else, because you're writing this code, right? Like, you're not using any brackets, or they turn up poorly because of the color scheme, but no brackets and no semicolons. So they say in coding to apply dry, don't repeat yourself, so why repeat characters zillions of times? That's my philosophy anyway. Right, so at hover we want the background to 5. Now that's because we applied the background to the unordered list, not the actual. Oh, I didn't realize that. There's a little bit of an overlay there. I cannot do. Usually you can combat. You might see there's a little bit of bleed. Usually you can combat that with overflow hidden, but because we've got a drop down popping up, we can't, and I can't be bothered nesting it in different elements just to combat this. So what I might do is I'll just leave that, to be honest. You can fix it, but I don't see the point. I mean, the whole point of this is to not worry about border radiuses bleeding over their parent. Right, so next. So when we're hovering, what do we want? We want the drop down list to appear, right? So luckily with the way our HTML is structured, I won't get into how you traverse the DOM with CSS selectors. We'll leave that for another day, but basically because we're descending an element, so we're taking a child element, so the hover is applying at this list item, and we can apply styling to this drop down, all within CSS, which is very handy dandy. So we'll embed this under the hover state here, and again I'm losing my drop down, losing my indentation, which is very enjoyable. Visible, opacity 1, and that should hopefully work. And no, it does not. Maybe we will do still a bit of live debugging, eh? So we put a background on. Accent, make sure I haven't got that wrong. Accent, no, that's right. God, what is happening? I'm not selecting that. Some very strange things happening. So here we go. Usually get an error pop up, and this, but for some reason it's not working. So, which is making my typos very frustrating. So drop down, we'll add the color of the text into this. So color, oops, font dark. Here we go. And again, let's apply some list style none. That will get rid of the bullet points. So I forgot to display flex, apply, and this time because we want, see how it's by default as soon as you apply display flex it goes to display row. So what we want is flex direction column, and it should give us this, yay. Column, and we'll get rid of any default, oh, not there, 0. Now with any unordered list and margin 0. Oh, there's always some sort of bogey margin and padding applied to unordered list by default, so we'll get rid of that. And look at that, float in the center, very tidy. What we'll do is we'll just apply a padding at the top and a small padding at the top and a big padding at the bottom, just to give a bit more perception of space. So we'll go 5 pix, 0, 30 pix, see how that looks. Here we go, and we'll apply a border radius at the bottom to give that curved effect. We'll go up here and we'll copy these, because I hate typing these ones so much. We will avoid it at all costs. Dry, they say, don't repeat yourself, so I won't. Bottom. Hey, look at that. And we'll give the, even though we don't need to, we'll just select the direct descendant and we'll say, sorry, I keep, this indentation is killing me, and hover background RGBA. Now this is just a little, like, really transparent dark, oh, really transparent black, just to, it's quite a background RGBA. Typos, bro. Good quick way of giving hover effect without needing to look at a color palette and match it. Right, so what we've got is we've got instantaneous hover effect. So as soon as we hover, it appears. And what we want to do is, if I bring back the other version and I'll hide the code so it doesn't look like I was cheating, we want the nice little transition effect. See how it drops down a bit right at the bottom? You'll see that, and we'll look at floating the list items in soon. So first of all, we need to apply a transform translate. So this is the default, like where it, by default, we want this to be 0, 0. So excuse my confusion, we don't want it to be 0, 0, we want it to start at negative 60 pix. So the reason we're doing a negative 60 pix is because we applied a line height of 60 pix at this for these list items. So what we want is we want the drop down to start essentially right at the top here and then slide down that 60 pix. So come hover effect time, we're going to say when we hover on this, drop the drop down list 60 pix. So if we just copy this, and if we find that hover trigger here, and you see here we're saying and hover, apply the styling to the URL drop down, which is the hover state of, or how we're targeting the drop down with the hover state, and we'll say 0, and you'll see here, way. Now because of the way we're applying the opacity and the visibility, you won't see this because it's instantaneous, so we need to apply a transition, and we'll apply the transition at transition, oops, at the root of, or at the default styling of the drop down. So then it will apply, so if you apply transition here, it would only apply when you hover, but what we want is we want it to transition when we hover and when we don't hover, so that way it's a two-tone transition. Right, so what was it on transition? We'll apply that to the transform 0.26. We'll do ease in, see how that looks. Is that too harsh? It's pretty harsh. We'll do ease out. Oh. That's alright. And last but not least, as you see, it's in front of the element, which we don't want, and part of that's because it's where it is in the DOM, and also because it's position absolute compared to this, which is position relative. And this is something I always get a bit confused with, but if in doubt, Z index it out. So we'll go -1 to send it back a stack, and then there we go. Look at that. We've got a little transition effect. And bit of extra for experts, we'll apply a box shadow. What we want is we want a little bit of a, we want the dark, what is going on? Sorry guys, you gotta love the old Z or Z index or whatever you call it. Yeah, so what I've got here is a little bug that I cannot understand what's happening. So as you see, it's coming from over the top, and that's just the way it's I guess the DOM structured here, as well as it being position absolute here, which sort of puts it on top of the layer. And so if I try to push it back a layer, I cannot, it's disappearing as soon as I hover over it, and I can't understand why, because if I reference the master, it's exactly the same code. I've gone back and tried to go line by line and double check, and there we go, position absolute, Z index -1, and it's working fine. So I can't understand what's causing it. If I find out, I'll post an update or do some sort of update, but there's no point really stalling our progress just because of that. So just, we won't be doing any hovering over the menu for now, so it works. If I change the Z index to 1, the hovering works, so we know that. So let's just move that to -1, so that way we get the desired visual effect without we lose the hover effect. So let's just add some box shadows. 1 pix, 3 pix, go to the 5 pix blur, -1 spread, which basically indents and brings in the box shadow a little bit. It's hard to describe. Yeah, 0.5. See what the negative, I can't, because it can't hover over, I can't show you, but essentially it brings in the box shadow a little bit, so you tend to get a bit more spread with that 5 pix over here, but that -1 pix spread sort of brings it in a bit and makes it look like it's almost a receding shadow. So because we've got that, we'll just go over the top with a second little we'll go 1 pix down, 0 pix across, 5 pix down, and we'll go to a 15 pix spread and blur, sorry, RGBA. Excuse me. Oh. So it gives a bit more depth. Although something's, so it's a bit weird there, but maybe that's just my screen, I can't tell. But right, let's move on. Let's get on to the fun part, which is getting a keyframe slide in. So even though you could have, I guess, apply a slide in via a transition like we've sort of already done here, let's use an animation just for something a little bit different. So let's set up some keyframes. So keyframes, we'll call it slide and left, because that's what we want it to do, slide and left. And from the starting point 0%, we will say transform translate we'll do 50 pixels and 0. Oops. And at the end point, we'll just reverse that. Now if we go back up to, so we want this animation to be applied when we hover over this element here. So as you can see, UL nav, which is this, the list item, the single list item element, which is that, the direct descendant, and when we hover over that, we want to apply that animation to the list item within, or each list item within the drop down menu. So right here we'll target LI, and again we'll just, if you don't use the animation that much, it's good to put all the long name properties, so that way you get used to it. So we'll do slide left, as I completely forgot about animation fill mode, which is really important, which we'll see in a second. Oh, it's not so much important to this one, sorry, but other animations it is. And I completely forgot about it because I got used to writing shorthand and I forgot that it even existed. But so duration 26. What duration do I have on the master version? We got 0.36. So indent this properly. Animation name. Right, so it is not working at the moment. This has been a comedy of errors so far today. When I built this today, it pretty much worked first time. Everything I was doing, and mind you, I was at work and I was in the zone, so you know, when you're in the coding zone, everything seems to go smoothly. I'm not quite sure what is not, so keyframe slide and left. Oh my god. Typos. But as you can see, first of all, it's because the whole, again, I've lost the, let's demonstrate it on the master version, what's going on here. As this whole drop down list is animating down, the list items are animating down with it. So this is why you get this weird down and across. So we don't want that for the moment. So we want to almost apply a default delay to every single child, so that way you don't get that down and across, and we just want to target the slide in and across aspect. So before we tackle that, we'll just put a, let's give ourselves a bit more room in the CSS department. Where are we? Let's give a timing function. Timing function of ease in, out. So that's actually reduced some of the downward appearance. But what we can do now is apply animations delays to each of the children. So see, they're all sliding in at the same time. We want to stagger that. And usually what you'd do is you would say, you could do it here, animation and child 2 animation delay 0.26. Having an absolute shocker today, guys. And that saves, if it's going to save. Animation delay 0.2 seconds. Why is this? Oh, I've nested it one too many. There we go. Tasty little delay there. But as you can see, we'd have to go through from first child to nth child 6, and essentially we don't. It's okay if you're building static sites that aren't going to change, but I mean this is a navigation menu. But real world situations when you're building dynamic websites, you know, content can change, different options in the drop down menus or whatnot can change. So what we want is we want to use JavaScript or JQuery to read how many children. So how many of these there are, how many bad boys there are, and for each of those we want to apply its own incremented animation delay. So say for this we want to apply maybe a default animation delay of 0.1 second or 0.2 second, sorry, for the first one, and then for each one after that we want to maybe add 0.05 seconds, another 0.05 seconds on top. So that way there'll be plus 0.5 plus plus 0.05 plus 0.1 plus 0.15 and so on and so on. So that way it gives it that nice staggered effect. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Right, so realizing time's getting away on us a bit now, so we'll kick straight on with the JavaScript side of things. So in Codepen, you've got this lovely little console here where we can console out any console logs essentially, just so we can help show what's going on here. So what we'll do is we'll start off with a document ready and a function within that. This is your typical document ready function, which basically says page is loaded, everything's rendered, now find these children and destroy them. Good old matrix quote there for you. No, we're not going to destroy them. We're going to say find these and count them essentially. We're going to count the children and, as I said, iterate through them and apply animation delay on them. So loop through each nav item. We've got a little on the go comment here. So we'll say JQuery selector, we'll say nav.navbar. Now hide the SAS for this. No, we'll just collapse it this way so we can see what we're doing here. So we're targeting nav.navbar forgot to put quotation marks. Shows the state of my coding at the moment. Children. So we're going twice. So I mean, this may not be the best way of doing it, but it works anyway. So we're saying dot children. So from this to dot children this, and then we're going to go to dot children again. And we'll just target the list item. And from the list item we'll go children again. Children ul dot drop down. Sorry guys, just I thought I'd backpedal for a little bit. Just I was going to get it all in knots here for a second, just while I was showing you how one drop down works, but then it wouldn't really make sense for how the other ones work. So what I've done is I've added another one under the about. I've just added 3 menu items, and if we go back down to the jQuery here, we'll get rid of that child. So basically what we want to do first is we want to go to each of the we want to come down to this node here. So we want to loop through these list items, which is what we're doing here. So we've come to this ulnav.li, ul.nav.li. You want to loop through each of these list items and see if they've got a drop down menu, because we need to essentially treat each drop down menu independently. So we'll go dot each function bang, and we will provide an index there, and that passes to this dot children dropdown. Now I know this isn't, it's not pretty, but it's effective. So we're essentially doing we're doing a loop within a loop here. Each function index see if I can remember how to console log this index plus text. Is it that? Oh, text. I've got the index number, I'm just trying to show you the inner text, but I forget what it is. Is it just that? So I realize this color scheme's not the best for showing it when the line's highlighted, but we will live with that for now. Pause it. Right, just to save the hassle, I went and created a variable text and said this.text and appended it to the index just to show you. So what we have is at index value 0 is menu 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then here at index value 0 there's menu 1, 2, 3. So you can basically see it's gone through, it's looped through each of these and found all the underlying drop downs, list items, and yeah, we've logged it out. So what we'll do now is we will go and see that this here's the index value, so obviously it's the key for the index, so we can use that as a sort of a base for a multiplier to apply our animation delay, and that's sort of what we're going to do right now. So if we go, let's keep that there. If we say delay equals 0.1 plus index times 0.05. If we update this here to delay, you can see here that it's basically gone, and if we, we'll clear the console and force a refresh without refreshing the page. Cool. So it's, as you see here at key value 0, it's gone 0.1 plus index times 0.05. So as you can see here, is that 0, so that's obviously going to default to that 0.01. 0.1, and then from so on it's just going to apply 1 times 0.05 and add it to 0.1. So that's going to be the basis of our animation delay. So what we're going to do is we're going to, because we're already looping through within here, we're saying this dot children blah blah blah, and we're still within the context of this, so we can say this dot CSS animation delay is this delay. So we're gonna add the seconds in there. Seconds. Oh. And good old semicolon, which I always forget. So hopefully, no, hasn't worked. What would you know? Another typo. You guys are probably pulling your hair out. Oh, look at that. So we'll clear this. And even if we go, we'll go to the pricing here and we'll put another drop down. Even if we give it, drop this down a line. One long as drop down menu. I can't be bothered updating the values, but you can see that it reads it. Now imagine doing, I think that's 18 animation delays within SAS. I mean, you can do SAS loops to do it, but that basically outputs to your CSS file, and again, that's not dynamic. So what we're doing here is we're injecting it into the inline styles. Drop down animation delay here, so you can see if we go to the pricing version, animation delay, look at all that. There we go. Now I'll keep it there because we're quite a long video. Obviously I'll try pause for 2 seconds and see if I can debug this issue, because this happens, it's always fixable, but it's just spending time and figuring out what's going on, because even if because it's not exactly like that list item's growing or anything, so it's, yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll be back. So it's getting a bit late here, so I didn't manage to debug it, but I'll remove that pen anyway and just reference this as the master, because I made that many coding errors on the stream that there's probably a little bogey in there somewhere that I need to pick out, but who knows where it is, and it's, yeah, as I said, it's too late. So that will conclude the first Let's Codepen. Yeah, sorry it's a bit long, probably a bit messy, made a lot of coding errors, a lot of keyboard noise, croaky voice because I'm a bit ill, but first episode, guys, all we can do is improve from here. So with a bit of practice on my end, I shall become better at talking and coding, because I'm usually wired in when I'm doing it, and I don't really make that many mistakes. Different keyboard, a lot easier, but hey, you know, got to start from the bottom, right? Right, so we'll leave it there, and I will be back in a day or two with another little. Let's give you a preview of what I built and what I'll be doing next. Little Olympics CSS spinner. That's next episode, guys. Look at that. Oh yeah, delicious. We'll start that soon. See ya.